Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of TrueAnon. I'm Brace Belden and I'm 5'4".
And I'm Liz Franzak. And let's not forget our producer, Young Chomsky.
That's right, we've got young Chomsky in the control room, making sure we sound our best.
Ready to roll.
That's right. And today we're talking about a really timely and controversial topic. Armed robots used by the police.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the more pressing issues that our society is facing today. We've seen reports of robots being used in different contexts, but this is the first time they've been used in this way.
Definitely. And it's a really interesting topic because it raises a lot of questions about the implications of technology on our society.
Right. And it's not just about the technology itself, but about the people and the systems that are using it. What does it mean for citizens when police are using robots?
Yeah. And it also raises questions about the ethics of using robots in this way. We're seeing a lot of mixed reactions, from people who think it's a great idea to those who are freaking flipping out about it.
Absolutely. So let's jump in and take a closer look at the issue. We'll be talking to experts, activists, and more to get different perspectives on the issue.
And we'll also be talking to people who are directly affected by the use of armed robots.
So stay tuned and get ready for an interesting and thought-provoking episode. Okay, so I want to actually take a little bit of issue with there, Liz.
Yes.
With you, excuse me. I specifically, when I was working with my partner in the AI program to write this intro for the episode, I specified that I wanted you to use the phrase "freaking flipping."
Did you really?
Yeah.
I thought I did
Unfortunately,
that.
you decided to sort of editorialize and kind of add your own twist on that by using "freaking flipping out."
And
And
I put a little spin on it, a little funk.
I'm just like, I want to be clear with you, like I get what you're doing. Like I admire your craft, and I think that you know what you're doing podcasting. But I wrote this script for like a pretty specific reason.
Actually, you didn't write the script, the robot did. But this is, to our audience, a perfect example of the difference between robot and human. Hello, everyone. I'm Liz.
And to illustrate the difference even more, in contrast to that, I'm Brace. And of course, we are joined by producer Young Chomsky, and the podcast is called TrueAnon. There we go.
We're back. We're back. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, I got to tell you. So I fed the we've been using this Chat GPT.
Well, to be clear, I have not been using it because I think it's godless and I shall not be interacting with any kind of robot.
No, Liz's funky ass got locked out of the MacBook.
However, the boys have been going pretty freaky deaky on it in the old GC in the group chat, TA group chat, spending some quality time with the old chatbot.
Let me tell you, this thing can write a hell of a rap song.
We should save that to the end. It's
okay.
too good.
Do you want me to? Because one idea that I did have on our tour was that I want to start. I can't really do this now because I kind of outed myself, but I wanted to come to you guys with an idea that I wanted to do a rap song, a really seriously hey, guys, I've really been thinking about this. I think this would be good for the show. I think I could kind of get into some music stuff.
Sure.
And then put out one of the, under the of course the trade name Erudite, put out probably one of the worst 8-minute long, probably the funkiest a white boy has ever got.
Here's the thing. You're gonna bring us that, being like, I'm gonna play little tricks on them. They're gonna be like, this is a terrible idea. Me, I'm flipping the script. I'm saying, let's do it.
In a heartbeat, I would.
In a heartbeat. You know what? It's going to be Erudite by Brace Belden. And I'm going to have it, that record will be next to your name for the rest of your life.
Okay, so it's bad to have something that's
Second
gold
sentence,
and circular? Like the
obituary.
sun? Oh, that's fine with, what's the first sentence?
He was a really nice person.
Brace Belden was killed today while being bored to death by Liz Franzak, who is also mean.
Oh, that's mean.
We are talking about something that I think longtime listeners of the show will know that I hate.
Robots.
The vile robot. I feel like I used to talk about this a lot more.
Robots?
Robots. I hate robots.
What's your favorite robot?
That's the crazy. That's like being like, hey, so like, I know you just got out of Dachau, but like, who was your favorite? Like, of the officers there, like, who do you think was?
I know, but
the
like
sweetest
of
smile?
the pop culture robot in the pop culture robot pantheon. If you had to pick one, who do you got?
You know what? Hard to get away from the noble Terminator.
Terminator.
Yeah.
You go Terminator over RoboCop?
RoboCop's not a robot. He's an android. That's the RoboCop is a sort of a colloquial thing.
I know.
He's cop too. He's not just robot.
Well, we'll get into this more when we discuss what actually is a robot, which is, of course, the backbone of almost all sci-fi.
Who's your favorite robot?
I gotta go. What's her name from the Jetsons?
Rosie?
Rosie. She's classico. I like her. Also, nice and thick with it.
Sometimes I feel like for a guy who grew up like I did, robots were my role models in media.
Not a lot of robots in movies these days.
I don't know. What movie? I mean, what?
Yeah,
The
they gotta
White
make more
Lotus
robot movies.
Has robots in it? It's like, what's going to have robots? Avatar, too? Westworld
Oh, yeah.
had robots?
That was all about robots.
Oh,
You know
that's
what?
not a movie,
Takesy
though.
backsies. Mea culpa.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what's going on with movies these days, but definitely I assume there's probably since T2 Rise of the Machines, I don't think there's been a lot of like
They don't make robot movies anymore because it's too close to reality.
That's true. I know it wasn't. And look at that. That was a classic Blade Runner Voight Kampf style test to see if you were a bit of a robot yourself.
T2 Judgment Day, I have the trading cards.
Wow. Certainly exhibiting some robot-like behavior here. Anyways, they just tried to make a suicide bomb robot in San Francisco.
Yeah, so that's why we're talking about robots, not because we're going to talk about robot movies.
All right, so let me see if I can do this. I did not. You know what? Little behind the scenes here. I did put the timestamps of the video that I wanted played right here. Unfortunately, did not put the link to the video, so I have to re-find it.
It just says audio around 34 seconds.
Let's see if I can just do this freestyle. Check this out. How did San Francisco and its mayor, London Breed, go from this in July of 2020?
Breed also announced a major $120 million budget cut to the San Francisco police and sheriff's departments. That money instead to be spent on addressing disparities in the city's black community.
To this just 1 week ago here in 2022.
Now at 7, police robots with the potential for deadly force. The SFPD policy just considered by San Francisco supervisors allowing robots to kill suspects in certain critical situations.
You like
That
that?
sounded good. Yeah, we're trying to get on our iHeartRadio
That was pretty good.
style.
Real podcasting.
Yeah, so last week, I believe it was last week, yes, the San Francisco Board of Supervisors voted to approve an SFPD policy that would use, quote, ground-based robots, a.k.a. killer robots. They had a second vote on it, which came down yesterday, which, little behind the scenes, that's Tuesday. And the Board of Supervisors actually voted it down, which was a twist, and we were not expecting when we were writing this episode. However, the episode shall go on. Now, the thing to understand about this is that California now requires police departments to take stock of all current military-style inventory, and that's like a technical term, military style, and scope out what it has and what it could, is authorized to use all that stuff for, and then all of that then has to be approved by local authorities, right? So our police departments all throughout the country, they get insane military-grade weapons, not just drones, stun grenades, all that kind of shit, but now apparently also now killer robots.
Yeah, and it's funny because you mentioned here their assault rifles, which is AR-15. That's what that stands for. Are not actually included in that. Those are not included in the military style rifles.
No.
Or military style weaponry.
Well, it is technically a military-style weapon. It basically, SFPD has like a shit ton, hundreds, I think, of assault rifles in its inventory, but it doesn't include those in the inventory list because it says that assault rifles are standard issue service weapons, which is completely and totally insane.
I thought the famous shotgun in the back of the police car or like in the front of the police car, but in the back of that area was like the big artillery they were supposed to use.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see them walking. You don't see cops in SF yet walking around with AR-15s. Like, it's just like not. That's not a standard issue service
cop
weapon.
in San Francisco walking around at all.
But also, more to the point, like actually, that definition is a legal definition, right? That's not something the SFPD gets to like footsie around with. So, but putting that aside, I do want to say that the reason why our police departments are getting all these military-style weapons is because the DoD has a program. It's called the 1033 program, where it enables DoD to unload like as much excess equipment as they want to state and local authorities, and that's how they all get it, right? And 1033, for those listening, angel number.
Is that?
It is.
Oh. I don't want any angel numbers around.
Yeah,
me.
I'm not
a
bringing that
fan
in.
of that.
I think that's dark magic.
Leads to these robots. Okay, so this initially came to public attention when Aaron Peskin, who is the chair of the Board of Supervisors, I think the Rules Committee, he is also deliriously short. I mean, my God, the man makes me look like, I don't know, who's a tall guy. I don't think of whatever 5'8", 5'9" celebrity you have in your head and picture him. I mean, the guy is a teeny little fella, almost as big as the bottles of liquor that he drinks nightly. Little scuttlebutt around town. The man's a lush. But anyways, he takes out for the SFPD's proposal here the following sentence: robots shall not be used as a use of force against any person.
That's like, it seems like a
I'm good with
normal
that.
thing to add in, to just say robots shouldn't be used as use of force.
They should be used as the classic things of girlfriends and slaves. That's basically the use of a robot.
Here's the thing, though. SFPD got that suggestion back, and then they're like, no, and they crossed it out.
Yeah, and this actually, it was sort of funny to see actually the reaction to this, because this did get voted on last week, and I believe it was 3 against 8 for. There's 11 supervisors in San Francisco. The people who were against it were Dean Preston, classic D5 supervisor.
And has no relation or interest or any connection to this podcast whatsoever.
Also not related to me, to be clear about that.
Is that a thing?
A lot of people seem to think that he is of some relation to me.
What?
I gotta say, lately he's been looking. His haircut makes him look more
this is like
similar.
an Ancestry.com
but we
situation.
But we don't actually look the same. People just think any two guys with glasses, people think look the same. It's one of the biggest discriminatory moves.
He's got kind of a big nose too.
He's got a big nose, but I just have a different facial structure.
He's much taller.
Yeah, he's like 5'6", 5'7". So Dean Preston votes against it, Hillary Ronan votes against it, and Shaman Walton votes against it. Everybody else votes for it. And you actually saw a lot of defenses, including from Raphael Mandelman, who's like, listen, a lot of people are saying that, there's going to be killer robots, but, they're not actually killer robots. I'm sorry. You got a robot that's specifically designed to kill somebody? I call a spade. That's a killer robot, my man.
Yeah. When SFPD struck out that suggestion, they replaced it with this sentence: robots will only be used as deadly force option when risk of loss of life to members of the public or officers are imminent and outweigh any other force option available to SFPD, which is a pretty crazy statement. And we can get into some of the legal implications of that maybe a little bit later in the show. But it's funny because even though this got voted down, there was a similar controversy in Oakland. Their policy it was just like a couple months ago, I think.
Yeah, it's very recent.
Their policy on police robots, which is just, I'm sorry. I know that, look, we get...
It's an EOD thing,
everyone
I get
is
it.
like, no, everyone's like, oh, you guys are boomers, blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry, saying police robots as a thing that we have to discuss and do an episode on is fucking crazy.
My thing is, you want to make this sound you want to make me not sound like a boomer? Don't call it a robot, man.
Yeah.
That's an old-fashioned
they
word.
probably won't in the future because of some legal stuff we're talking about. With Oakland PD, they were really looking at this one device, which was called a pan disruptor. No.
You know what? I've been called a bit of a pan disruptor myself.
Yeah. But that actually stands for percussion actuated non-electric disruptor. The disruptor stands for disruptor.
Yeah.
This is a, quote, gun-shaped device that gets attached to a remote-controlled robot, and then it uses blank shotgun shells to disable a bomb by shooting it with pressurized water. And basically, the city council was looking at this, and they were like, "Huh," and they were talking to the PD about it, and they were like, "All right, but could this ever be used in any other situation?" And Oakland PD, like, basically begrudgingly, after like a series of like huffing and puffing in like very cartoon police way, like imagine Cartoon Pig in cartoon police outfit.
So charming, yeah.
So charming. He's huffing and puffing. He's like, ugh. Yes, you can replace those blanks with live rounds.
Now, see, I read about this, and I was wondering, like, if I was this guy, because he not only says that, like, he actually starts like over-explaining, which, by the way, TrueAnon tip.
Never over-explain.
Yes or no suffices.
Yeah, especially in a question and answer environment.
You don't want to be doing. You're in front of a committee of some sort.
Yeah. Look, you're a cartoon pig. You already have a hard time talking.
Or anticipate what the objections might be, and then seek to undercut those. But he's basically like, well, they ask him like, could this be used against a person? He's like, no. Well, yes. And then he proceeds to give like a variety of situations that he's clearly thought about where that could absolutely be used against a human being.
Yes.
So, I mean, one of the things he says, I mean, is it possible we have an active shooter in a place we can't get to and he's fortified inside a house, or we're trying to get to a person? Interesting that he says that, because there's obviously an incident at the top of his mind.
Cut to Dallas, 2016.
Bet you didn't think we were going to say that, did you? No, folks. A robot did not kill JFK.
Ooh, that's a good one.
You know what? Actually, I could like something people haven't considered is, what if Lee Harvey Oswald actually came back from a future time period where JFK had turned into some sort of Hitler-type figure?
Interesting.
And he kind of killed him
baby
before.
JFK,
Yeah,
but he
killed
wasn't
baby
baby.
JFK. But he was he could have. Lee Harvey Oswald was like, I can't kill a baby.
Next Terminator film.
Yeah, exactly. So back in Dallas, 2016, right? We're having a hot summer that year. BLM protests are in full force. In many ways, sort of mirroring the much hotter but much sadder summer of 2020.
Somewhat masked.
Very masked. Well, somewhat masked summer of 2020. You can't actually catch coronavirus at BLM protests, so there was actually no reason for the mask. But anyways, so Dallas 2016 had been a pretty crazy week that week. There was, I believe that was the same week that Alton Sterling had been executed in Baton Rouge? Baton Rouge?
I like Baton Rouge.
Baton Rouge, and of course the video of Philando Castile, actually a live stream of him being killed, which is a really tough video to watch. Those had both recently happened, and those had come out, right? And so there was going to be this protest in downtown Dallas, actually pretty much near where the JFK robot assassination had happened. Mika Johnson, Army vet. One article from NBC has his former squad mates calling him klutzy and goofy, which I got to say, insane adjectives to use.
Yes.
When they served together in the, 420th Engineering Battalion. He was a mason and a carpenter in the Army, and he was deployed to Afghanistan. Basically like a veteran, but not like some like crazy PTSD or going back to American Sniper. The guy who shot American Sniper style veteran.
Right.
But also American Sniper himself. So the guy says, maybe I have too many details here, but this is pretty much a forgotten shooting, even though it was a pretty major one.
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest attacks specifically on police officers in our great nation's history. But sorry, Liz gave me a look after I said that, but you know what? I'm going to keep rocking through it. So big protest happens, right? It's sort of towards the end. We're getting towards the evening, the night. And a car pulls up. This is we're near a college downtown campus in Dallas. And a guy gets out, talks to a few different police officers, and then shoots them all. And over the next several hours gets in a running gun battle with the police through the college campus until basically he is cornered and is sort of stuck in, he's stuck, but he's also got the Dallas police officers stuck down like a long hallway where he's firing from. So there's also a famous move during this fight that I should mention here, because those of you who studied urban combat will no doubt have seen this, where Mika Johnson is sort of like engaged in a pretty close quarters shootout with a police officer around these pillars outside of a building in downtown Dallas.
Does he go behind the pillar?
Well, they're both behind pillars, sort of shooting at each other. He goes behind, shoots at the ground to distract the officer in one direction, and then goes behind the cop in the other direction. Bam, blows him away.
You telling me this is a video game move?
I'm telling you, you know what? I don't even know if video games possess the technology where you could do a move this advanced. It's a pretty crazy move. Anyways, he ends up shooting, I think it's like maybe 9 cops, killing 9 cops, I believe. But which is, police do not like when one of them get killed, let alone 9 of them.
Yeah.
Pretty deadly day for the force. Wounds, of course, a bunch of other ones. At the end of this little chase to the college, he's sort of holed up at the end of this hallway, blasting back at officers. They're shooting at him. One of the big things is they say like, oh, we expended 200 rounds shooting at this guy.
What?
I don't know. That's not that many rounds.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, because half the time people are shooting these things, they're kind of just popping off.
Yeah. They're just
not
going all
These aren't
yeah.
aimed shots.
Crazy
you know,
cat. Well, it's
they're-
Dallas too. Crazy cowboy cops.
Exactly. Well, they do only have 6 shooters, which is why he very much outmatched him with his assault rifle. But police, report him as saying black power, all this stuff. There's a lot to get into for maybe a different episode about sort of the story around this. But they were sort of implying that he was a member of a black nationalist group, although it never actually came out that he was a member of any sort of organized group or anything like that. Anyways, 2 hours pass. The police are impatient. They're being taunted by Johnson, who is saying classic quips like, "How many of you guys did I kill?" Or, I think I might kill some more of you guys. So they say. But there's absolutely no way that they're going to take this guy alive.
Yeah.
I mean,
no.
you shoot a cop, your chances of getting out of whatever situation you're in alive, it goes down by quite a bit. You shoot 9 cops, you're at 0%.
Yeah, totally.
So the police eventually send in a robot behind a wall near where Johnson is located. Now, this is a Remotech F5A bomb disposal robot sold by Northrop Grumman with a pound of C4 strapped to it. They detonate the bomb, and Johnson dies in the blast.
And the robot.
You know what? Actually, the robot does not die, which is something that should be mentioned. This EOD robots are famously very resistant to bombs. The robot was damaged, but I believe after, of course, recuperating from his wounds with his, wife and newborn child, was probably put back into active duty. But no, the robot actually survived the blast.
Fascinating.
But this was the first case of an unmanned vehicle killing a U.S. citizen in the United States. In fact, not even just an unmanned vehicle. I mean, listen, who among us hasn't put an apple down on the fucking gas pedal and had that fucking guy go down a hill and, streets of San Francisco?
And how many of us haven't died, have died in Tesla crashes?
True. Well, it's manned. You're just not really in control. But this is actually the first case of a robot being used to assassinate a human being that we know of in the United States. The justification from the police was that the police could possibly face injury or death, which I gotta say, yeah. I mean, that's kind of a big part of the job.
Well, that's how the police forces justify the use of these things. Is they say, okay, this is going to keep the safety of officers. Like, this will keep them more safe, and this will make the officers more comfortable in doing their job, or whatever. And we'll see that, as we kind of go through this, even more so when they kind of describe future uses for them. So, like, you could see a robot now stopping you, coming up to inspect your vehicle, and the cop is staying in the car, for example. But it's always, always, always justified by saying that, it's taking care of the officers.
Yeah, and even an even more broader justification for this, because I think even the police, as pig-headed as they can be sometimes, realize that that's not always the best justification for the general public to accept things like this, is that it saves lives. That's a huge reason that EOD robots are so popular, and that their use was so when they were first deployed in Northern Ireland, which we'll get to in a second, was justified to the general public is that like, well, these are saving lives. Well, they're
Right.
saving the officers' lives maybe, or they're saving like maybe they are. But the general thing is that like they're protecting civilians. That's how you're supposed to think of these things. And really we see that justification the whole way down from like EOD robots to drones. But specifically, I do want to get into how did we get to the era basically where the SFPD, presumably using the example of the 2016 attack in Dallas, is basically trying to justify the use of what are essentially explosive killer robots.
Yes.
So since the popular imagination, as people like Liz tend to call it, but as I would call it, since man first began to dream about robots or automatons, there's been a lot of space taken up, but thinking about how are these things going to fucking eventually turn on us and kill us, right? I call this I really got to think of a pithy name. Terminated Mind. That's my annoying verso book about it. But there's basically been attempts at suicide robots ever since we got robots to function a little bit like you would think they would in like the modern day, right? So one of the first ones was called the Kettering bug.
If we called robots bugs, way cuter.
What about
Kettering,
the Roomba?
Kettering bug sounds very cute. Sounds like it's going to do a dance.
You know what? I'll be honest. Before we get into any of this history stuff, what's your take on the Roomba?
I don't like Roomba.
I don't like Roombas either.
First of all, too loud.
Hugely noisy.
Very loud.
Yeah.
And I don't like that it just does its thing.
I don't like the. First of all, it's mapping my house, which
Yeah.
I got to be honest with you. People always say that. I'm like, what is your house? I mean, I could map anyone's house if I walked in there in 2 seconds. What, you have a one bedroom and a bathroom?
Yeah, but
Maybe a little kitchen?
you're not selling the map of your house to like 85 billion advertisers.
No, I sell it to our highest patrons. Yeah, but I don't like Roombas. I feel like they steal jobs from boyfriends who like maybe don't know how to do a ton of like around the house stuff. But they do know how to vacuum, stuff like that. I feel like that should be maybe illegal on that, just for that alone.
I just think it's too loud. And I don't like, here's the other thing. I don't like the element of surprise.
I love the element of surprise.
Look, I don't
Yeah.
like surprise on me. I don't like surprises.
Fair enough, yeah.
So when I see something moving in the corner of my eye, I don't like that. In my own home? No way.
I don't like it either.
I can't get used to that.
Well, the company that makes the Roomba, iRobot, also makes.
You can't call your robot company iRobot.
Well, you clearly can. Although I do,
Wait, wasn't
I will
that a
say
movie?
that was a very famous.
With Will Smith?
Well, I actually haven't seen the movie. A much more famous book than the movie. I believe. I believe the movie is not very well known. But yeah, iRobot itself was.
Wait, they just named their company after famous books?
About Isaac Asimov.
Hey, you can't do that.
That's like where they developed the rules of like whether robots should be able to kill you and all that kind of stuff.
Famously, that they can't kill you.
But that's disproved in the book. I mean, that's the thing is they come up with the rules and then both reality and the very book that those rules surface in really just go and show us the opposite, right? So anyways, the Kettering bug, which was basically like, this is happening during World War I. They're inventing it. So it's like a biplane with a bunch of bombs in it. That's supposed to be, I think it was radio controlled.
Okay.
Back then, people were flipping all sorts of switches and making things do things.
A lot of knobs and switches
A
happening.
little closer to a guided missile, really, than a plane, or than like a robot or anything. But we're sort of seeing where things would end up. The French, tinkerers that they are, a gnomish race, also had an unmanned explosive vehicle they employed around the same time that sort of looked like a tank a little bit. That was also unmanned explosive vehicle. But the actual tank filled with those brave boys from Alsace, those kind of overshadowed it. I don't think they actually ever deployed their little fake robot into battle. So the French, in the interwar period, when the rest of the country was busy, the French were doing a lot of weird shit back then. They were trying to be like the French attempts at fascism, some of the most pathetic things you could ever point to anywhere in history.
I think they do a pretty good job of it nowadays.
But it looks nothing like it did.
No,
right?
it's quite modern.
Yeah, exactly. So while everyone else was doing all those wacky shit in politics, some French tinkerers were working on a small remote-controlled demolition vehicle. So this is, I believe, based on the attempt that they made during World War I to make this little fucking, driving bomb. Anyways, famously, the Germans, get this, guys, invade France.
What?
Take that son of a bitch over.
Wow, I totally missed that part.
Yeah, they're like, you know what we need to put in charge here? One of the oldest men in history.
Yeah.
Philip Pétain. I mean, you guys, they actually put, the Germans, so respectful of French culture, actually put the oldest man in charge of France at that time that they could find. Anyways, they find this little prototype, and Germans that they are, thieves and rats, all of them. Not you if you're listening to this. They take that thing back, they tinker with it themselves, and create a device called the Goliath, which is a little bit ironic because it's a tiny little guy, maybe the size of a hug. And it is like a little tracked vehicle that's filled with bombs and controlled by wires. And you drive it up to your little, I don't know, I guess they're the Nazis, so probably some people who really didn't deserve it. And then you blow them up with it. And so they created bigger and bigger versions of this, and they actually employed it quite a lot. Of this, basically a remote-controlled car filled with explosives. This is, I believe, the genesis of the bomb that killed Mika Johnson, and the ones that the SFPD would like to use on people in San Francisco today.
Yeah, they just finally went wireless.
It's the Nazi Goliath is what the SFPD wants to unleash, and I'm not even kidding. It's essentially the same thing. So. Okay, we've got your little, we've got our little suicide vehicles here. But I think we also kind of have to, if we're getting to where we actually get today, I think we have to take some other things into consideration here, right? So World War II ends. Oh no, so scary. Everyone has robot fever now, right? We're all crazy about the golden age of science fiction is happening. So America is going crazy for this stuff. DARPA's out there, MIT's out there, basically every nerd in America who, by the way, if all these people had been locked up or killed by either the Soviet Union or some sort of devastating brain virus throughout this period, we'd been in a much better place today. Anyways, they invent this thing called Shaky the robot.
Shaky?
Yes. This was invented at Stanford, Liz, I think in the late 50s. And it's got like a little camera on it. It's basically the first modern day thing that we would recognize as like a robot. So the early 1970s also saw the introduction of the first explosives ordnance disposal, which EOD robots, onto the battlefield. This happened in Northern Ireland, where the Irish were battling the British over who could be less Jewish. And the first thing that they come up with is called the wheelbarrow. And I think they actually still use versions of the wheelbarrow today. The IRA was getting pretty good at, these bombs, these fucking car bombs, these regular bombs, these street bombs, all kinds of bombs. And so the British were constantly using, in fact, employing these EOD robots that they had just invented throughout the rest of the time of the Troubles. And it's actually, you can see some pretty... I don't want to say funny, but they're definitely funny pictures of like this little Wall-E looking robot, going through the streets of Northern Ireland while like these British people are like hiding behind the walls with their guns. So EOD robots famously constantly used the whole world over, right? I mean, this is kind of, a guy comes up to me now at the cop bars that I hang out with to meet boyfriends at, and he tells me, oh, I work at EOD. I'm like, so what? You control a little robot? Like, suck my dick, dude. You don't do anything. EOD robots used in like every fucking police department, used on every battlefield. I mean, they're probably the most prominent use of what we would call like the robot in American police departments, except for, of course, New Orleans Police Department, which does have a C-3PO.
I'm going to regret this.
So, okay. Elsewhere in the 1970s, or actually the late 1960s, in Vietnam, the U.S. Army, one of the most benevolent organizations in human history, was deploying laser-guided munitions and so-called, basically the earliest instances of so-called smart munitions. So this is also really an introduction where we hear a lot about how precision attacks save lives, right? And of course, like, the classic, and a classic American tactic of like terror bombing and like just fully like just loading like dummy bombs constantly like in B-52s over, cities and battlefields. Like, they do kill a lot of people. But I think the contrast here between the so-called smart munitions saving lives and sort of the dummy bombs like killing people or whatever, they both kill people.
Right.
And I think it's an obfuscatory, whatever you pronounce it, tactic basically used by propagandists for, the war machine. Anyways, we also see the introduction of UAVs, which is unmanned aerial vehicles, which have technically been in use in some form for like a very long time. But the ones that we know essentially as drones really started with the, similar thing to how like the guided missiles started with like these planes that they were kind of launching out of airfields during the First World War. World War II, they kind of create this even crazier one, which is like an old B-17, and it's like they actually have a pilot up there for a second. He takes off, arms the bombs, he jumps out. The rest of the way, it's controlled by remote control. Fact, John F. Kennedy, later to be killed by robots, his older brother, he's up there. He's one of these pilots. He's like, I'm taking off. This thing's heading to Germany. I'm going to fucking set this. I'm going to take off. I'm going to get level. I'm going to turn the bomb on, and then I'm going to parachute out like I'm supposed to do. Not so fast, young man. Bomb goes off early. What could have been?
Oh, my God. J.K. Jr.
J.K. Jr., I know. Joseph, I wonder if it's a P. Kennedy Jr. I actually don't know his middle name, but Joe Kennedy Sr., real piece of shit, by the way. Anyways, technology advance, drones get improved upon. I mean, drones, as they are, get invented. And in addition to their use as reconnaissance vehicles, which is what they've traditionally been used for, they actually begin carrying deadly payloads as well. Israel is sort of the first pioneers of this. I believe somewhere I read that Iran had one that was like armed with an RPG in the 80s, which is kind of cool to think about. But drone as drone didn't really come into its own until, of course, the classic Afghanistan. Right?
That would be America,
not
the Taliban.
Afghanistan invented these things in the 1960s during their push for industrialization. No,
the Predator drone. Everyone knows the Predator drone. Mm-hmm. That's like the symbol of, I would say, like the Bush years would be the Predator drone.
To me, the real Predator drone is, hey, how are you? My name is Brace. I play in an indie rock band. How you look so old. So yeah, the Predator drone saw its first combat use in Afghanistan, I think just like maybe a week after the invasion started. I mean, we've been flying unmanned, unarmed rather, drones over Afghanistan for a while before that. But we really started rocking people with the Hellfires right after 9/11, and we kind of haven't stopped.
Yeah. I gotta say, Predator drone, very clunky.
It's got kind of a bulbous Yakubian forehead.
It's it's definitely like a big boy.
It's a fatty.
It's not sleek.
It's not sleek. I mean, those things are big. And have you seen the little cages they keep these little freaks who drive them in?
Yeah.
Good God, man. Do you imagine what those things smell like? If there is a drone operator on this earth who doesn't stink like shit, then I will eat my own shoe. My God. So anyways, now it is very normal, actually. And sort of people don't even really think about it. But there are literally an unknown amount of American robots that fly over various countries we are not at war with that are ready to rain down destruction, including, in some cases, this giant flying knife at people, which is a new kind of bomb they came up with, at a moment's notice. So we have essentially these flying Terminators all around the world that are ready to basically off anyone we don't like, no matter what. You know, it's fitting too that the last U.S. drone strike in Afghanistan, when we were still in Afghanistan, was actually, of course, on a civilian. I mean, this is, a huge topic that has been covered extensively, but obviously the death toll from these precision guided munitions, these drones that are supposed to be, preventing combat deaths or preventing, excess deaths in general, have often been used on totally civilian targets. I mean, it is astounding how many just regular people they kill. A lot of the times on purpose, to seed terror in these countries. I have also had a grenade dropped on me from a drone. Not on me, on a building I was in. But, the sort of smaller drones, even civilian drones essentially, are often repurposed in combat now by, let's say, non-state actors to serve as sort of crude bomb-dropping devices.
Yeah, recycled.
Exactly. Again, though, almost all of the things that we've described here are controlled by a human operator, right? That's a human operator controlling the robot. but
Right.
it's a human operator involved to begin with.
Right.
So in 2020, during a failed offensive by the Libyan warlord Khalid Haftar, we've mentioned
old
on the
friend
show
of the
before,
show,
old friend of the pod. Turkey, which was backing his rivals in the government of National Accord, of course, had them on the pod as well. Kind of tried to do like a Rogan style, like, you know, guys, we're all kind of smoking a little weed here. That did not go well, and that episode will never be released. Anyways, Turkey used autonomous drones to harry and harass Haftar's forces while they were retreating. So according to a UN report on the subject, logistics convoys and retreating HAF were subsequently hunted down and remotely engaged by the unmanned combat aerial vehicles or the lethal autonomous weapon systems, such as the STM Kargu-2 and other loitering munitions. The lethal autonomous weapon systems were programmed to attack targets without requiring data connectivity between the operator and the munition. In effect, a true fire, forget, and find capability. So what that's saying there is killer robots.
Yeah, that's a robot.
That is
I was
a
going to say,
full-on
so it's like
robot.
up until, like we said, up until this point, I think what we were talking about, even with drones, even, you know, people don't really think of those as robots, right? Some of that, I think, is because we've become so used to this technology that because of that, our understanding of kind of what this stuff is feels like it's like more and more normalized, and so we don't think of it as something like so future sounding as like robot.
For sure, yeah.
On the other hand, like you mentioned, all of the stuff previous to when we got to Libya were remote controlled by operators. And so they weren't ever making decisions themselves. They weren't, they were just sort of like, they're a little thing that can deploy something, but a person has to say yes, no, whatever, based on whatever reconnaissance or not the thing gives it, right? Whatever data it feeds. Okay. What we're saying here is that in 2020, that changed. And we saw an actual autonomous, I don't know, robot. It's a robot.
It's a fucking robot.
It's a killer robot. Kill
yeah,
somebody.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Like, we're not robot experts. We're not drone experts. I would say we're laymen on the subject, right? Gladly so. I will never take the side of the robot. But this is what it looks like to me. I'm not a dumb guy. I'm not a smart guy. I'm a regular guy. And I'm seeing this stuff here, and I'm seeing a robot killing a human being in the desert with no human input. And that, to me, raises my hackles.
As it should. I mean, I think, okay, with all robot and artificial intelligence content, and we can talk about the difference between those two, if there is, or what, or whatever, if we want. But it brings up a ton of interesting kind of like legal, ethical, debates, questions, whatever. Like in the intro, what the chatbot said, you know what I'm saying? It's like we kind of detailed. In the Dallas shooting, the robot lacked any ability to make any kind of independent decision. Yeah. Right? It was an unmanned vehicle, and the decision was made by the police, right, to end the standoff with the detonation. But it wasn't the robot that decided that. Yeah. Which is an important distinction. And technically, that robot, taking a step back. Technically, the robot wasn't designed to harm people.
No.
And it didn't have any ability to make any independent decision, right? So it's sort of like being ramshackled, kind of like make use.
Yeah, they strapped a pound of C4 to a robot whose actual purpose was
big
to disarm
human intervention
bombs.
there.
Yes.
Totally. So I think in general, when we think of robot, at least when I think of robot, because I want to talk about this, we don't think of just like a vehicle without a person in it. No. Right? I mean, that's just like, I don't know. It doesn't feel like a robot yet.
No.
We think of AI, or what's also known as artificial intelligence.
We're thinking of an R2D2 or a C3PO.
Yeah, basically, look, there's no agreed upon definition of what a robot is, which is good for the sci-fi genre, but bad for the legal system. I think there's a lot of debate over what actually is artificial intelligence. We don't have to get into the weeds about that, although I'm curious what you think a robot is.
It's funny. It's one of those things with a lot with me is I know it when I see it. But I'm saying a little metal guy, whether it's an arm or a whole guy or even something that doesn't look like a guy, but I'm going to say even these little crawlers and an R2-D2 type robot as opposed to a C-3PO type robot. And I think, and I'm not even like saying this for effect on the show or whatever, I think they should all be extremely illegal.
No, but what do you think constitutes robot? Like, when does it go from unmanned vehicle to robot?
Oh, like when does it go? When does it go from being like an RC car to a robot?
Yeah,
I'm saying RC cars are little robots, but they're more androids because they have a man connected to them. Pause. But I would say I don't know. Actually, I don't exactly know.
So I think. I mean, it's an interesting debate. Like, we could get stoned and go to a freshman dorm or whatever and get freaky with it.
We actually couldn't because that would affect my sobriety, but I mean, that's okay that you think that.
I hate to quote this guy. Sebastian Thrun, who's the director of the AI lab at Stanford, I think has like a pretty decent like definition, which is that, for artificial intelligence, which I do think a robot requires.
Interesting. I don't, but
Okay.
go on.
I think that when we think of robot, I think decision-making is important. But he says that it's the ability of a machine to perceive something complex and make appropriate decisions, although I might quibble with his use of appropriate there. But I do think that kind of gets us closer to maybe something.
So I think where we may be different on our definitions is I don't think a robot needs AI. I think a robot can have either a simple or complex algorithm, which is you often see AI.
Right. Okay. Just a machine thing that does something.
Totally. Right.
Okay. I'm with you. I'm with you.
On our way back from our wonderful shows in San Francisco, right? Our way back here to ever so cold New York shitty. I was an SFO, of course, denied entry to the Admiral's Lounge due to the incident.
Wonderful airport.
Great airport.
It's the best airport in the country.
Fantastic airport.
Calm.
Well, here's me calmly trying to get my damn matcha latte, and what do I see but a robot arm behind a kiosk, right? And this thing, I've seen videos of it before. I don't like it, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try for one of the nastiest drinks I can get, a matcha latte. And so I put my card. I actually don't have a tap card. I do have a debit card with about a third of the stripe that fell off after I dropped it on the ground a couple months ago.
What is going on in your wallet? You always have like broken cards and like things getting demagnetized.
Yeah, that's true. That's because I carry a lot of dangerous shit in there, sweetheart. Anyways, I pop that in. It accepts, and it makes me one of the worst drinks I've ever had in my life. But there's a crowd of sort of like gaping onlookers looking at this thing. And this thing it's not AI, right? Like it's pre-programmed to do a certain number of tasks. But there is no job that I've ever had in my life, including, as we saw from that fucking chat GPT bullshit, podcaster, that could not be replaced by AI or by even a complex algorithm for the most part. And so my thing with this is all of it. I don't like any of it. Even a simple, complex algorithm, whatever. If a man can do it, a man should do it. Listen, these things are job killers.
Yes, they definitely are. I mean, they're going to kill just the simple predator drone. I mean, because AI is definitely coming to drone warfare.
100%.
It's funny. There's like a lot has been made in like there's been all these like movies in the past like decade or so about like the perils of being a drone operator, which I was kind of like thinking back on when we were kind of going through the notes for this. The tech exists to push this even further and put those hardworking drone oppers out of work.
The tech actually exists right now to put those hardworking drone operators into a 6-foot hole.
In 2020, the Army equipped an MC-1C Gray Eagle drone, which I just as a side note, I fucking hate our names for weapons.
100. Predator, I got to be honest with you, Predator's a pretty sick name.
Okay, I'll give you Predator.
Hellfire, also a sick name.
Gray Eagle sucks.
Gray Eagle's awful.
Patriot?
Horrible.
I hate it all. Anyway, whatever. It's just corny. Okay, so the Army, they equipped this drone with the Maven Smart system and an algorithmic inference platform. Mm-hmm. It uses sensor data and turns it into target info. And then, based on that info, selects the best weapon for response to a given threat. all of that fully autonomous, right? Now they put on a big show with this thing, and the big show was that, they're like, okay, this is AI, this is machine learning, you've got the timeline, you've got data collection, then the weapon system is engaged. All of that was shortened from what used to take 20 minutes to 20 seconds.
Yeah.
So the tech exists. There was I found this like horrifying quote from Brigadier General Ross Kaufman, naturally a friend of the show. He said, so obviously the technology exists to remove the human, right? The technology exists. But the United States Army, and I swear to God, this is a direct quote, but the United States Army, an ethical-based organization, that's not going to remove a human from the loop to make decisions of life or death on the battlefield, right? We understand that. I'm not sure we understand that.
I don't think we understand that. Here's the thing. Here's the thing about all of this, Liz, is this is a slippery fucking slope, right?
Yes.
There have been various attempts at making international laws to basically ban what would be AI-controlled robot warfare, but I guarantee you this, that will not happen.
Well, the federal government is already spending a shit ton of money on robotics research. Everyone is researching robotics.
Yeah.
It's, inexpensive and sophisticated tech is going to be extremely attractive to police forces, like just as it has been to the military, you know what I mean? Regardless of the intent and design. And I think that's like an important thing, right? It's like, I'm not a tech person. Okay, I swear I'm not as stupid as sometimes I play on the podcast about this stuff. But I do think that there is a bit of naivete, or let's say shirking of responsibility in the tech sector on the development of some of this stuff and then its possible use cases, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And part of that is, complicated because, especially with a lot of the computational technology, a lot of it's like understanding how it will be used comes in then feedback from the user, right?
Yeah.
I understand that. But that's very tricky and sticky when the user is police forces or the U.S. military. You know what I mean? And this is like a direct quote from the U.S. government on this. They said, it really started with this idea that commercial industry, Silicon Valley, had come up with techniques going back to, 2008, 2009, when the sort of deep learning kind of revolution happened. Mm-hmm. The idea was, let's bring in industry. Let's sort of translate what you're doing in Silicon Valley in commercial. We want to give you military scenarios to see what you can do with that.
Yeah,
and that's where all of this is converging, right? And it's really, you start working through a lot of this stuff, especially when we're talking about specifically the police force, right? Like, how is, you mentioned, kind of the legal area, right? Mm-hmm. When we think about, to get a little heady here for a second, it's like when you think about what is, theoretically an intent, reaching for a fully automated system, right?
Yeah.
What does then due process mean in a fully automated system, right? How is that even possible?
Yeah.
Theoretically. And obviously, it's like there's a lot of sci-fi that has covered all of. I'm not trying to blow anyone's mind, but I want to bring this back specifically to like police forces. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of this will come down to how we classify robots, which sounds insane, like under the law. Like, this is totally uncharted territory. You know what I mean? Like, is machine learning technology? Is it something else? Is it property? Is it human? Is it another legal category? Is it animal? Is it slave? Is it child? I know this sounds insane.
Yeah.
But like, putting this stuff in the framework of policing is super interesting, right? Because, human police, which sounds weird to say, but
there's dog police.
Yes, but I'm talking about human police here. They're legally allowed to. I mean, be generous with me when I'm talking about this, okay? They're legally allowed to resort to force, right? Including deadly force, which we all know, and claims of excessive force against police. Those get judged under the legal standard of, quote, objective reasonableness, which is, under the Fourth Amendment, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the Supreme Court has really shied away from defining out in any kind of like list what factors could be used in determining what constitutes reasonableness in any given scenario in these like excessive force cases. And so instead what's kind of like been given as direction is a really like mucky, confusing legal doctrine that's really notoriously difficult to kind of, articulate. And it's all done on a case-by-case basis. Okay. We all know this, right? We all know that the police is given like extreme generosity from the courts and determining what is like reasonable. But for the most part, courts have maintained that police are forced to make split-second decisions about the amount of force required in any given scenario. As an aside, I think there's some interesting like people who have problematized just that idea.
Yeah.
The idea that excessive force relies on split-second decisions by the police, I think, is very easily contested. And that, would completely undermine a lot of, these Fourth Amendment cases. Anyway. But basically, that's all to say the courts have given the cops a lot of deference when they testify and they believe that their lives were in danger, right?
Very much so, yeah.
Even if and when those fears turn out to be mistaken, which is an important thing to note. Okay, so what does that have to do with robots? Now, there's a couple things to think through here, right? Like I said, what is a robot? Like legally, what category does the robot fall under, right? The thing is, the categories that when this gets decided inevitably, right, it's going to get carved out in the coming decades as these cases appear before the courts. And the courts are going to use analogies in order to understand robots and justify those rules, right? So that will like how the law, compares them to children, slaves, computers, property, animals, humans, right, is going to determine whether or not a robot could be liable for using excessive force, right?
Yeah.
And you can if robots, let's push it out, right? If robots are property, right? Let's just say that, okay? If robots are property, then there's no legal basis for them to defend themselves against a human attack, even if they're operating a policing role. So you can see how, from a legal basis, from the legal standard, if it's a piece of property, it cannot defend itself, right, against a human attack.
So for instance, this is like, it would be like the same thing as me shooting a police car rather than shooting a police officer.
Exactly.
And so a police car isn't allowed to have a machine gun on top of it that comes out, through sort of like separating plates and then scans the area and then shoots me. And so why should a robot?
You can, let's use a different analogy, right? Let's say it's an animal. Well, is cruelty to robots going to be criminalized, right? These are interesting questions. There was a case where a robot, do you guys remember there was like that robot? I'm just forgetting. I don't have it here in front of me, but it was like a robot that was found dismembered in like a mountain. Like it was like a hiking robot, and like all these people like dismembered it in some kind of like I don't know, maybe it was like a Donner Party LARPing situation. But a lot of people in response to that pushed back because they were like, oh, this is showing our, a lot of reason why we have animal cruelty laws and other sorts of, they're kind of like to map out what we as a society say are like, it's not a utilitarian thing, right? It's because this is, this goes against a fundamental, moral principle that we have as a society. And so many people were pointing to that as, with the hiking robot or whatever, dismemberment, saying, look, this shows that we need to, protect the robots because it shows something so ugly about our own nature, right? Now, if they're similar to animals, then how does that shift for police robots then become? Are they then police dogs? That you could see that kind of scenario. Mm-hmm. What about damage? What about hacks when these things inevitably malfunction, right? Who bears responsibility for the mistakes of the robot? If it causes a threat to be misjudged because of a hack or because of a malfunction, which will inevitably happen, right? And then it uses disproportionate force, who's liable? These are all like really, and this isn't even like scratching the surface. We haven't even talked about what about when there's criminal robots? So now you've got police robots fighting criminal robots. What about the use of excessive force there? If a police robot isn't a human, then a criminal robot isn't a human. And so
Yeah.
there cannot be any excessive force.
Well, I mean,
claim.
but then you get also onto like, what about when there's, you know, robot wars that are fought?
Yeah, I
using,
know it sounds
you know?
so insane, but it's all of this is all, you know, this is very long and kind of weedy, I guess. But like all of it's to say that these this legal regime is completely and totally uncharted. There are no laws governing any of this stuff, and so what happens, you know, in these cases, in the case of Dallas, or if we see more and more forces, like police forces, deploying these robots, and I mean, this stuff is going to happen in the next 10 years. We're going to start seeing cases.
I mean, that's the thing is like this stuff can seem like, I don't know, all, you know, so futuristic and so like, yeah, like, oh, I'm just smoking weed and having this theoretical thing in the college dorm. But like the fact of the matter is, right, there have been confirmed kills by autonomous weapons. Okay. And, you know, there was autonomous weapon. I talked about the drone too, but like Germany, I know, invented like an autonomous gun that can shoot down projectiles from the sky. Like a big thing that is used by, let's say, non-state actors, non-state forces in warfare is these small swarms of suicide drones,
Right.
also used by state actors as well. But which can be very effective, right? And they were using them against like air bases in Afghanistan. Germany had a gun that could just like automatically track and shoot down these things. Obviously, those are shooting down projectiles; they're not killing people. But like this sort of technology is advancing at a pretty rapid rate, right? And we're seeing the actual era where this becomes a possibility. Like the use of all these things. Again, I should remind you, like it is not like you are not taking time out of your day to like trip out every day at the fact that there are literal fucking flying robots all around the world. I sound like fucking Louis C.K. here. Like, it's so incredible. But, like, there are actual flying robots, like, around the world that, like, can just blow a guy up at a fucking moment. At push of a button from a fucking, you know, gamer fucking, you know, setup in Nevada. Right? I mean, this is not – we are leaving the realm of the theoretical and entering the realm of the practical. And it's best to like actually figure out this stuff before it actually happens. Because a big, you know, thing that, you know, from the Silicon Valley types is move fast and break things and like progress. And that any technological advancement is necessarily synonymous with progress, right? And like, you know, call me fucking crazy. But like you see all this progress that we've made with like the, you know, the internet technology in the past 20 years. It has made the world an actively significantly worse place, right? And it's like, imagine that, you know, that sort of same sort of technological leaps and bounds put to creating artificial intelligence or fucking, you know, or robots or better robots or robots that have artificial intelligence. I mean, I'll tell you one thing is the reason, like, you know, we don't want fucking people killing animals, right? We don't want like, you know, people abusing animals, killing animals, right? Is because like, you know, first of all, that says something about our moral and ethical duty to like other living beings, right? And like, you know, the thing is with a cop, you know, I dealt with a lot of cops. I actually have had the pleasure of both being, the droned is not, but not in probably the smallest sense of it. But you know, having had a drone drop explosives, and also I've had a gun pointed at me by the SFPD in the alley across from the Mexican gay bar on fucking 16th, and I have been subject to both of those things. A man pulls a gun at me, even if that man is a piece of shit, that is still a man. Right? On some level, still a man, and a man that I can reason with, I can talk to. Generally not if they're a cop, but you know, there is that possibility there. They were born a human being with a soul. And like an AI or a robot or whatever, you know, specifically, I guess this would be AI or an algorithmically driven robot, whatever. You know, these things, you know, maybe I'm sure that they'll eventually create some AI that has like less not accidental, but like unnecessary use of force incidents than like a flesh and blood police officer, right? And that they're going to be like able to do like, I eventually, depending on what administration's in power, which way the public wind is blowing, is going to be like, look, we've made an anti-racist police officer a robot cop, right? Or they're going to use something like that. I'm sure that these tests will be done and they'll do these kind of things. It's like at the end of the day, though, like if someone's going to pull the trigger on me, it's like I want a beating heart somewhere behind that gun, you know? and like, or if someone's gonna pull out a gun at me at all. And it's like a robot can be programmed or fed data that gives it a simulacrum of an emotion or a heart or a moral compass. It can have an implanted moral compass, but it can never actually have a real one. And it's like, and it can learn these things, and I'm sure these fucking nerds will be like, well, it learns them in the same way that we all learn them. First of all, I fucking despise you. But it does not have like the same like flesh and blood like connection to the earth and to the peoples upon it. And so like it is, I gotta say it, they're our fucking enemy.
That's why we say no robots here.
No robots.
No
here.
robot. No more robots. That's the TrueAnon. No more robots.
No more robots.
No more robots.
And you know what, Liz? I can guarantee you this, my sweet little mon cherie, that some fucking nerd who listens to this show will be like, well, this is a robot. That's a robot. Listen, we know what the robots are.
Yeah, you know when you see it.
We know when you see it, you know? I don't need to get into this. We're not Lex Friedman over here, right? We're human beings. I hate this little guy. Let me tell you what. Let me talk about this Lex Friedman guy for a second. Now that is an AI if I've ever seen one. So much has happened, Liz.
I know.
With us and with the world, but also just in the, we've been on tour, but
It's so nice to be back.
It's so nice to be back. Hear about this Kanye West guy?
No, who's that?
Well, it's an interesting little fella. He's like a sort of like an,
How tall is Kanye?
he is huge, like 5'10", 5'11".
Wait, how tall is he?
Actually, how
though?
tall is he?
5'8".
He's really 5'8"?
Yeah, he's got to be shorter. So
He's
like
5'8"?
no, so that's internet 5'8" means he's real life 5'6".
I'm towering over this motherfucker
Yeah.
at a hard 8.25 inches. Yeah, he is. You see Alex Jones and Steve Crowder. Steve Crowder. Yeah, that's what I call him. Steven Crowder. They turned against Nick Fuentes. I got to tell you, this past 2 weeks has been a disaster for us kind, gentle, loving people who are trying to rehabilitate Adolf Hitler.
Oh my God.
I mean, my God, 50 years of work I've been engaging in. Down the drain. This charlatan.
That's the real psyop.
Yeah.
That should be the new like crazy right wing theory that all of those guys are psyop. Is that
that literally is the theory?
Oh, no,
yes, it's like they're trying to shitcoat Trump or whatever. Here's the thing: it's what I got to tell you.
I forgot about Trump. Is he still running?
It's funny because he declared, right?
Yeah.
And then we didn't really hear much after that. No. Yeah.
Whimper.
Did he declare, or was it just rumored he was going to declare?
No, I think he did.
He did declare, right? It's just been such a nothing after that.
That's you know what? I think they should have to go, I do declare. Then we would know.
I do declare that I'm running for the president of, the southern states of America. He is, he had dinner with like, Kanye and Fuentes and some
Trump
other,
did?
and then
I
some
don't know any of
Boeing
this.
fucking cocksucker.
I got to get back in the game.
I mean, I don't think he's very much. I don't think he's in. I think Ron DeSanctimonious is. It's weird to be running a re-election campaign from the state where the other guy's governor.
Yeah, I don't like him. Obviously, but I mean, not just for the obvious things. He looks so clammy.
Ron DeSantis.
He looks like he's very.
Just 2 hours ago, Vincent Martini says the same thing to me.
No way.
He's just like Ron DeSantis.
He's a very wet man.
Yeah.
Doesn't he seem very wet?
He does seem like a moist fella.
I think he's gonna Marco Rubio himself.
Gay?
No, like he's gonna do a classic. Like everyone's like, "This is my guy. This is the guy."
And it's like
this is not the guy.
It's crazy. People were really like Marco Rubio's our guy.
Yeah,
they're
still trying to make that one happen.
God.
Every
What did Trump call him?
Little Marco.
Little Marco. That's so much better. Little Marco is crazy.
Yeah,
Compare
goes
that
crazy.
to fucking Ron DeSanctimonious.
That doesn't work. You know why? Because I don't think Trump wrote that.
Oh yeah, this is your theory that I get behind. Trump's not.
No.
Patriots are not in control right now.
No, there's so many ghostwriters.
Yeah. Well, I think they just made the one, but
He's just call him Clammy Ron.
Clammy Ron is good. Yeah.
No one's gonna vote for Clammy Ron.
It's crazy. It's crazy to see the battle lines getting drawn here, but you know what? I mean, fucking egg on our faces. We were Kamala first people, and now it's like I don't even know if they're gonna run her as her own ticket.
I'm still Kamala first.
I'm
you know
gonna tell
what?
ya-
Let's go full lady. Because look, we here at TrueAnon, we're straight shooters. We are hardcore, still remain Jill Stein voters.
We're Stein all the way down. We're Stein all the way
so
down.
what we're saying is, Kamala, let's reprise this role as VP. You've done such a great job.
But get behind Stein.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Jill
got to get
Stein.
behind Stein. Hey,
Jewish?
get behind Stein.
She's Jewish? I think so. She doesn't look like it.
I don't know
No.
anything about her. I got to say, Kamala, very funny.
She's having a renaissance right now.
Yeah, everything's coming up, Kamala.
I don't know if I would go that far at all. I would
just
say
mean in
people are
terms of-
laughing at her probably in greater numbers than
This
ever
is like what I
before.
call, okay, so every NBA season, the beginning of every NBA season, you can kind of catch the vibe of like where everyone's going in terms of like low key, let's call them the hipster teams.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Of like, I'm rooting for these guys. These are the fun watch league pass. These are like
The
league
Bushwick
pass
Whites.
what I would call league pass sleepers.
Uh-huh.
Which is, no one thinks that they want to watch this, but this is,
Gotcha.
classic.
Yeah.
In 2 to 3 years, everyone's going to be like, man, this squad is fucking fantastic, right? I feel that afoot with Kamala, and I have for about the past 6 months, in that it's really been 8 months, where everyone's just like, God, she's so funny. We misjudged her. It's ironic, of course. But she's got some ironic power that I think she can tap into, except the team is going to ruin it for everyone.
That little girl was me.
Yeah.
That little girl was
If the
me.
team gets wind of the ironic power of Kamala, her internal team, the whole thing's going to be dead in the water.
You think her and Doug Emhoff are fucking?
You guys, it's great to be
It's
back.
so good. It's
I'm
so good to be
happy
it's
to
so, I
do
love to be
some-
back.
to do podcasting, and we are so excited to announce that this was the last episode that Brace and I will be doing, because now chatbots will be
Can
scripting
you
the
kill
entire.
time for like another minute?
Will be no.
All right,
I
fine. Then
never
I'll just
know
talk
what to
with.
say when you do that. Then I
Okay.
just like freeze up and I can't talk.
Let me ask you a question.
Why don't we
Liz.
just tell him to pause recording and we'll start? in a
No,
second?
no. We're podcasting right now.
No, the whole thing of podcast can get edited. It's not live radio.
Okay, pause here. All right, look at the end of the document, the very end.
No, you didn't put it in yet.
Oh, fuck. Wait, I gotta,
there it
I gotta
is.
switch up the verse chorus structure.
Oh my god.
Hold on. I'm getting there. This is how the fucking we
Oh, no.
never do the live editing while we're going here. We can switch off verses if you'd like,
Oh my god.
but I think it's time to start.
Okay, let's switch off. Okay, are you gonna start?
No, you are.
Oh, no,
Okay, I'll start.
no, it's fine. Oh god. Liz Franzak is a real cool host, inviting her guests. She's never boast. But when Brace Belden came to town, she had a plan that would turn the tables around. She offered him, well, this is not how it has happened, but okay. She offered him a co-host of the TrueAnon podcast, but only if he'd admit to shaving his legs.
I don't do that.
Brace knew that it was a test of his will, but he refused, ready to remain standing still.
Which is ironic because actually the reason that my legs don't have any hair on them right now is due to aerodynamics, but I didn't shave them, it just fell off. Oh, this is the chorus. Oh, Liz Franzak, the hostess with the mostest, offering a co-host a rat in exchange to Brace Belden's admission. It was a deal that seemed too good to be true, but it didn't stop Liz from trying to make it through.
The rat was a special one, young Chomsky by name, living in a hole in Central Park, he'd claim. He was excited at the offer made by the host, and said he'd be delighted if Brace just said toast. But Brace held his ground, his pride in the way. He refused to admit that he shaves his legs that day. So young Chomsky stayed in his hole, and Liz stayed host, and TrueAnon is still going, so that's not a total loss.
Oh,
This
Liz.
doesn't even make any sense.
Oh, Liz Franzak, the hostess with the mostest, offering a co-host a rat in exchange for Brace Belden's admission. It was a deal that seemed too good to be true, but it didn't stop Liz from trying to make it through.
It's a funny thing, this deal Liz made. She said she'd give the co-host to a rat, unafraid. But Brace Belden kept his pride and said no. So young Chomsky stayed in his hole in Central park, not ready to go. But Liz still hosts the show, her voice ringing out strong, inviting guests and conversations that go on and on. TrueAnon is still going, and it's worth a listen. And Liz Franzek is still the one to thank for that decision. Okay, I think it ends well.
I think so too. And you know what? I got to tell you, I've created some other I didn't think that the other raps would be okay for us to read on here.
Yeah, they aren't.
They
are
aren't.
not okay.
But I feel like this one was appropriate.
Yeah.
1 second. I'm actually going to come up with a quick way for us to say goodbye. Okay? Can you just read this? Can you read this?
No, I can't.
You can't read this?
No.
Young Chomsky, could you give her a hint? Could you maybe see what you're reading here?
He's dual wielding.
Dual wielding middle fingers, Liz. Dual wielding.
And that is why I'll never replace Brace with a robot.
But I would gladly replace you with an even shorter woman that I could tower over and act like a tyrant in front of. Now, I'm hungry. I don't want to do the episode. I'm going to be 4 hours late today. Ugh. You know what? The rap studio next door to us literally stopped playing beats really loud right as we're ending the show.
I know.
Which is...
But you know what? We pushed through it.
We pushed through it. You know what? We did. And we're back. We're podcasting. We're back in the seat. We've got some great episodes coming up for you guys. We're doing an episode. No, I'm not going to lie.
I'm like, wait, tell me. What are
I'm
we
not
doing
going to
episode?
lie. No. You'll see when she shows up.
Oh, my God. I'm Liz.
My name is Brace the Robot Belden. And of course, we are joined by producer Young Chomsky and our faithful friend C3PO.
Don't get technical with me.
And this has been TrueAnon. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein.